When I read that gospel earlier this week, this is too loud. Let me put it down a little bit. I don't want to wake you up. Did that do it? No. All right. There we go. When I read that gospel, I couldn't help but think of a story that I remember hearing a long time ago. And it was about a church service in which the minister had called all the children up into the front of the church to give them a little children's homily. And so he invited all the children to come up, and they all sat down there, and the minister began by saying, what is brown and has a big bushy tail? And one little boy put up his hand, said, Jesus. So the minister said, brown and a bushy tail and eats nuts. And the little boy said, Jesus. He says, brown and bushy tail, eats nuts and jumps from tree to tree. And the little boy said, Jesus. And so the minister says, Sammy, why do you keep saying Jesus? And Sammy said, well, I knew you didn't call us up here to talk about some dumb squirrel. I like Sammy because he just got to the point. He cut to the chase. And that's the important thing. And I think that's what Jesus does in the gospel today. In fact, all of our readings today cut to the chase. They say very simply, either you're on board or you're not on board. You've got to make decisive commitment if you're going to be a disciple of Christ, if you're going to live within the kingdom of God. That's what Jesus is saying there in the gospel. That's even what Elijah and Elisha went through at the beginning. When Elijah called Elisha, when he responded, what did he do? He killed all of his oxen and he burnt the plow in order to cook the oxen. And you say, that's strange. Well, what he did was he destroyed everything so he couldn't go back. You don't go back if there's no oxen to help you plow the field, if there's no plow left. And so he made that decision to truly follow Elijah at that point. Jesus in the gospel speaks about that decisiveness of following him, that decisiveness of not trying to hold on to the past, but rather of really moving towards the future. But what Jesus is talking about is not so much not burying the father or even saying goodbye to the family, but he's saying what St. Paul is talking about in the second reading today, that powerful one, where Paul challenges us to think about our freedom and the freedom that we have, and how our freedom is not to do evil, but our freedom is to do good. Paul talks about the fact that we are free from the old Mosaic law. We are freed from that law in order that we may truly live according to the Spirit. And he says that the flesh fights against the Spirit. And by flesh there, St. Paul is not referring to these bodies of ours. Our bodies are not evil. The body is not bad at all. It's part of the creation of God. And so when St. Paul refers to the flesh, he's talking about fallen human nature, our own fallen human nature, that by reason of our human existence, we have fallen into that original sin. But through redemption, we have freedom of the sons and daughters of God, that we are called to live a new radical life, of that life of love, to overcome the negativity within our lives, to put behind our selfishness, to burn up those evil desires, and rather to leave those so that we may move forward in greater fidelity. And so when Paul talks about the flesh, he's talking about the fallen nature that we have to combat, our own sinful tendencies, that we need to truly cut ourselves off and to free ourselves through Christ, who is the source of our freedom, so that we may truly live a new life, a life in union with the Spirit, a life of true self-giving love, a life that truly brings joy and happiness, not only for just now, but for all eternity. Sammy cut to the chase. So did Jesus. So does Paul. The invitation is to follow Christ, to put our past behind us, to move forward, guided by the Spirit.